This episode is sponsored in part by PTZ Optics. Why need a cameraman when you can just do it yourself? Visit ptzoptics.com for more information. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Broadcast Now, the show that talks about everything that has to do with live streaming, broadcasting, the internet, craziness when it comes to equipment. Yeah, that's my world right now. I am living in crazy world. We'll get to that in a little bit. But first, we've got Mr. Marty McPadden from PodJam.tv. Welcome, sir.
Steven, craziness, that's a good word for it. I was seeing some behind the scenes look at what you got going on in that studio. That's crazy. You're going to need an addition on your house pretty soon.
No, we're going to hopefully going to get rid of the craziness. We also got with us the king of crazy. No, I'm just kidding. We've got Mr. Greg Perry. Yes.
He's back. Thank you, Steven. Nice to see you, Marty. We're going to have a great time tonight. Absolutely.
So, I was kicking around the idea. We wanted to talk about NDI, but they didn't release everything with NDI. As you can see, I've got my NDI hat on. I've been in NDI world all day today. And they didn't release everything with NDI with Bridge, and a lot of people were disappointed, which I kind of knew was going to happen because, when you introduce such a new technology, people get, anxious. And then when it doesn't come, people are like, oh. But trust me, the beta previews that I've been playing with, it's pretty good. But, we'll talk about it when it's fully released. John Mahoney did a really good job of going through it. So I'll give him a plug, and everybody can go watch that. But one of the things that kind of hit me this week, as you guys, if you followed my Instagram, I run a TriCaster 460 right now, and I just received the TriCaster, or TC1, which is the 4K edition of the TriCaster, which is brought out like 3 years ago in 2017. But as much as I want to play with it, guys, and get it into production, it's not necessarily a smart thing to do. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because everybody gets a shiny piece of gear, and they just want to throw it into production without even running it through its paces. Or, hey, I mean, new things break, right?
Yes. The short answer, yes, they break. It's funny. One of the things I always talk about, especially with new gear, is everybody wants that quick start guide. They want it, like setting up a new TV. You get that one sheeter out, and you say, page one, read this first, and get it all set up. Of course, you want to do it. You want to play with your toy, and you want to get it all set up, and you want to run it. May work for a TV, probably not such a good idea if you're doing video production or live streaming, because you're going to make mistakes. It's the thing is, you have to really take the time to learn the new piece of gear. Like in your case, Steven, you got the TC1. It's another version of the TriCaster, so it's very similar, but there's still a lot of differences there, a lot of upgrades. And so you always want to make sure you know what's going on, especially if you're doing regular shows. One of the analogies, I would think of it this way: you see road construction on the freeway or on the highway. They never shut down the entire road. They always shut down a lane at a time. And you'll notice that even during the construction and as they improve highways, the traffic's always running somewhere. Instead of being 3 lanes, maybe 1 lane, but it's always running. And until they're ready to put the new piece into service, they're going to run with the old, and then they're going to have what's called a cutover, a switchover, and then they're ready to go. Very little downtime. You can cut it over, but you're confident that the new piece of gear or new, in this case, new roadway works. In your case, Steven, I know you're setting up the TC1, and you're kind of running it in parallel. That's probably a good approach. So if you have a new piece of gear, and if you're live streaming, your old setup already works. I'm taking that for granted. It already works. You may upgrade something, may get a new switcher, may get a new piece of software. Doesn't mean that you have to automatically start using it right away. Do it in parallel. Run tests. Run it side by side if you have to. That way and then you can kind of plan for a cutover date. Know that you're confident and okay, I can now start running it here after testing and after proving that you actually know what's going on with it and know how it works.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that I had been doing here, and we'll kind of get to that. And Greg, I appreciate it. You let me know that we weren't live on HAPS, but we are now. So people just missed a little bit of the beginning here. That's all right. In my, running around here acting like a chicken with my head cut off, I forgot to hit the go live button, so that was easy enough to do. But Greg, what about you? I mean, you've been building your studio for the last year and a half,
Yeah.
and implementing new things.
I think that's we've been building my studio, Stephen.
Well, it depends how people respond to it.
Let's be completely honest. I personally think that Stephen and Marty McPadden are full of crap. And if you get a new piece of gear in your studio and you're gonna think you're gonna parallel test it and parallel run it and stream it to a private group for 3 months and hope it works and then get it perfected, baloney! It's sitting there in the box. It's golden. It's beautiful. It's gonna upgrade my experience. And then you have a disaster. So probably what you need to do is listen to what Marty is saying and Stephen. Now, there is a big difference, and the big difference comes if you are producing video that is not a live stream. That is a little bit of a different ball game because you're not on a time schedule. You're not on I've got to go live Thursday at 7 o'clock. I just bought this new piece of equipment at 5 o'clock. I've got it connected. I don't have time to test it, but I'm going for it because YouTube says it works. So if you're live, 100%, you take your time, you work with your new equipment and gear that you have. I highly recommend creating a private YouTube or a private Facebook group, unlisted, where you can practice, go back and review. One of our partners in here is Jeff. And he has the what's it called, Stephen? The digital green room.
Yeah, digital green room. Yep.
It's one of the areas that broadcasters that Jeff has set up, and I know he'll be watching this later, where we can grow together, try some things out, get some reviews. So live stream, 1,000,000%. You have to take your time, and but with the production video, if you're making a video and you say, "Oh, I'm putting it up in 5 days," well, you're not going to let that piece of equipment sit in the box. That can be your learning curve. But of course, still, before you post that video, you're going to have a good product. So a little bit of difference there. I see it between being live and being produced.
No, I think that's a good point. I have been doing a video, like I did an unboxing video yesterday of the TC1, and it was all in my everything that I could do to just leave it sit there. Like I hooked it up and sat there and did not power it on, because one of the things I wanted to do was a video for the experience of first time turning it on. A lot of people, maybe they're wanting to get this, but they're not sure what to experience, what they're going to experience, or what's going to happen. And so I wanted to give them that kind of voyeuristic view where you're sitting there watching me for the first time turning it on, and when it pops up and says, "Oh, you need a driver update," what I go through to look for that driver to make sure, this is a contained unit, right? So my view pretty much this week has been this. So I have this, and then I have this. So I've been running this in the last 24 hours in parallel with this TriCaster to make sure that everything is running smooth and that I have the same settings from here that I have running over here. So there's some similarities, as Marty said, but there also is some other cool things that I can do with that I can't do with this. And we're going to kind of show you guys here in a little bit, with that. So it's a bit of a process.
Stephen, it's me. And I'm so disappointed. You have set up your parallel setup in my seat.
Well, you were going to run it when you come in, weren't you?
That is my seat. Get that new gear out of it.
But you're right, though. I mean, like my goal at first, I thought it was going to take me a couple weeks, maybe to a month to get this going. And right now I'm just waiting for New Tech to deactivate my virtual set editor software on one of my other machines so I can activate it on here. That's something I need when I do these double box shots and triple box shots. I need to be able to edit it there. If not, I'll have to turn the old one on, edit it, export it to a thumb drive, move it over like Marty we used to do when you didn't have it. I don't want to do that. I have the license. I just need to move it. But I'll show you something really cool with it, right? So the NDI thing, right? So I thought, well, what better way to put it into production within 24 hours without actually putting it into production, but I'm still putting it into production, was to show you guys right here. This is the NDI stuff. So I'm going to walk over here. The cool part about this is I can sit here and I have a bunch of inputs in here, which are essentially the same inputs that I'm using on the other one, but they're hardwired. These are all NDI inputs. So I can actually control the show from this TriCaster. I can go over to this camera, which is, I'm switching on the new TriCaster. I can go over to, if Jeff was here, this is Jeff's input. I can go to, say, input 7, which is my chair over there. I can even go to my overhead, which you guys can see, there's my hand. And I could switch. So Greg, I actually am using this in production without using it in production by using the NDI. I can call up graphics and things like that. Whoops, let me pull these off. I can bring up, I think I even have it set up that we can bring in under DSK. Yeah, we can, right there. Hello, everyone. Let's see if we can change it to rainwater here. He had a comment. Let's see if we can bring that in. Right there. And Kongs are us. He said, I just need to up my gear. So you can see this is on the new TriCaster that I'm pulling this graphic in. I'm just enabling it through the web browser. But it's all being done here. And, you know, I can set up my ME, you know, however I need to, you know, need to do it and switch over to it. But everything's being done here. And what I wanted to show you with NDI, and I was showing this to Marty. So I'm going to go down here in my seat. So as you can see by the lower third, this is through NDI, my camera. Okay. Now I'm going to switch back over to my SDI, and I'm going to continue talking, and now I'm going to go back to my NDI. Can you see a difference? You're probably not seeing a difference. That's how good this is.
I see no difference.
So that's something that we want to get into in future episodes, is the whole NDI. But this is a way, I was telling Marty in pre-show, this is a way that I torture test my new machines. I want them running. I want to bring in the same inputs that I'm using over here. Now, the only thing I can't do is bring you two in because you're over SDI right now. I didn't want to mess up anything for the show, so I just left you guys out of it, and you're just coming in straight SDI into my old TriCaster. But as far as all my other inputs that I have, like my PTZ cameras that are in here over NDI, I was able to bring them in, and I've got them on both machines. So I can
Steven, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is that new piece of equipment, that new piece of gear over there, which is in my seat, is that like...
He'll never let you forget that.
Oh, of course not. Is that like Christmas morning, you know, as a young kid? Is that how you view it? I mean, seriously.
No, I do. In fact,
okay,
I view NAB as the Super Bowl.
Okay, so you got that new gear over there, cutting edge technology, right over to your right. You're rolling. You just demonstrated and told us, other than Marty and my images not be available because we're over SDI and not NDI, you were basically running the show with the new piece of gear. And even though I know the answer already, that you could have made it happen to use the new gear tonight, you chose not to.
Correct.
It's simple. You chose not to.
I did choose not to, and because my day job, I get to play with this stuff, right? That's part of my job, is to know the ins and outs of this equipment, to work with our customers for the cameras that integrate with this, because nobody in my company knows the TriCaster. And so that's one of my specialties. So for me to be able to do this during the day, yeah, you're right. I could have pulled the old TriCaster out, and I've done this, right? When a hard drive went bad. You guys know we had a show that night. That morning, I'm ripping the old hard drive out, putting a new hard drive in there, and getting it ready for the show, which I even said to you guys, listen, if something goes wonky, just letting you know, I ripped it out, put a new hard. I had no choice. You know, we had to roll, right? The show had to go on. So in a pinch like that, you got to do what you got to do to make it happen. But I have a choice right now. I can ease into it, make sure the information that I need from this old one gets over there. I can take my time and set it up because, as you know, with running vMix and starting new projects, and guys in the chat room, Wirecast and OBS, as you learn better ways of doing things, and you get a bunch of clutter in your document. I can take the time now and set it up the right way. We'll call it that way, the right way. Yep. The way I learned from the time I started was probably not the correct way. It was kind of janky, but now I can set it up more effectively and efficiently based on the new features. So that's why I'm taking my time. Probably next week I'm going to try to implement it. That's a try.
Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead, Marty. He's just answering my question exactly.
I would also, like you were bringing up, you do obviously do this for your day job, and it's in a professional capacity. And a lot of people, I think, that watch the show may do live streaming for fun or for a hobby. But if anybody's doing it as a profession or doing it client work, this is especially important to take this lesson where you have to make sure everything performs as expected, especially if you're getting paid. So, like Steven, you're setting up the new TC1. Yeah, theoretically, you probably could swap it in, use it. It's pretty similar. But for this show, and just the way you approach the shows, you're approaching it as a professional would. That, failure is not an option, or at least minimize it the best you can.
Right.
And obviously using new gear that you are not completely positive that you know exactly how it works, know the quirks, know that it is going to work as expected, whatever your workflow happens to be, without thoroughly testing is really asking for trouble. And I think a lot of people, when they do this stuff, they may introduce a new piece of gear, a new piece of software, and they may just wing it, and it may work. And I think what happens is, and I've seen this with people, they get lucky, and then they think, oh, well, why are these guys talking about you need all this workflow, testing, or whatever? I just proved that I was able to put this very easy piece, and everything's so easy now, easy piece of software or easy switcher or whatever they happen to be using, and it worked. It's like, well, I can just do that every time until they run into a problem. I see it all the time. And frankly, and to not make people feel bad, this happens consistently at the network level too. I'll watch TV and I'll see mistakes happen all the time, and they're planning everything out and they still have things go wrong. Could you imagine if you don't do that? I mean, the chances of you having a real smooth, produced show is really low,
Yeah.
And also, as you add different tools, it's like if you're a carpenter and you get a new hammer, and if you don't really know how to use that hammer, it's worthless to you. And as you get more professional, you're getting these different pieces of equipment, and the more knowledge you have and the more professional you are, these pieces of equipment mean more, and you're able to do more, and you're able to get more out of it. But like you're having there, Steven, you have now 2 TriCasters. There's all kinds of options because you're expanding the tool bag here, along with all the other software that you have. And now it gets kind of fun, actually, because you have an opportunity to kind of go through your workflow and say, oh man, I got all these different tools. How do I best? Now, you may be doing it a certain way up to this point, but if you introduce a couple new tools, or maybe even old tools with new updates, new capabilities, say, wait a minute, maybe you pull back a little bit and you say, oh, how can I improve my workflow? And then you take that to the side. That's where kind of the working it out as a parallel operation really helps. It requires patience.
Yeah.
It requires you to learn your gear. But trust me, I went through this with editing, where, especially if I'm doing it for money, for a business, if I don't really learn what I'm doing, then I'm not making money because it's not efficient for me to do the work, and I'm losing money. I have to be really efficient. I have to know what works. I have to be able to do all that stuff. And that requires me to be up on my game and learn this stuff, and even learn when new things come along. So same thing with you, Steve. I mean, you're going through, like, think about the possibilities you have. It requires, okay, let me think about this. Let me say, how can I use this gear more effectively, more efficiently?
Yep.
and what can I introduce new, and make sure I'm really, really familiar with that new workflow.
Well, and let me show you real quick. So this UI looks the same as my other one, but here's a bug that I found, just something stupid, right? If I click this sprocket, the screen opens up. It looks like no big deal, right? Watch what happens when I do it to input 10. Now I'll go to input 9. Now I'll go to input 8. There's bugs. Just see how small those other ones are?
Yep.
They're all supposed to be either, I'm assuming big, because the majority of them are big, right? But if I come back down here, it's small.
Weird.
So it's just, again, it's a small bug. But these are the things that I do with this when I'm working on a new interface like this, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to set things up. It's stupid things like that. Like if I got out of the TriCaster interface, let me just get out of it really quick. I'll show you guys. I think I have the camera pointing. Oh, that's right. Hang on a second. Let me switch cameras here, because you guys are gonna only see the TriCaster, but I'm not in it. So let me go back over to it. There we go. So this is why I want to show this. So if I go to shutdown administrator mode, it's going to yell at me because of that. Inside of here, they give you an option to register the system. They give you an option to update the TriCaster. When I tried updating it through this, and I have it on the video, it corrupts it every single time. So I literally had to exit to Windows and then do the update by going to the website and doing it. It's just little bugs like that that you find that maybe people don't know about. That, yeah, my monitor's a little bit too small, so you'll see that. But it's just things like that that you start picking up on, because, again, I'm the type of guy that I'm going to update it before I start anything, because if something breaks on it, I want to make sure that I can fix it and not waste any time, with setting it up, and then all of a sudden I do the update and it breaks it. And now I got to reflash back to the, factory defaults. So those are things I try to do. Yeah.
How many cameras do you have in your studio?
I knew somebody was
a bajillion.
I'm not even using all of them.
I'm just going to ask the question that everybody that's viewing on whatever platform. Oh, well, let me just switch to it's not ready. Let me just switch to this camera, which is validating a point. Even though we're talking about new gear, you have to be a master of your gear before you implement it, because even right there, Stephen was doing things on the fly. Now, I would maybe tag on to what we just witnessed Stephen doing, moving over to another one, bringing in another screen, wherever he's got the shoulder cam. I guess he has a camera mounted on his shoulder. I don't know, but he's got, and I know that studio well. I think he's got hidden cameras in there. Next time I go in there, I'm going to be looking. In fact, I'm going to give a report to Broadcast Now. The next time I am personally in studio with Stephen, I'm going to do a secret mission, and I'm going to count how many cameras he has, and I'm going to report it live on Broadcast Now. Now, here's the deal. Most of the folks watching Broadcast Now, maybe not most. No, I think I'll stick with most. Marty comes from a background of ESPN production team. Everyone's got their specific job. They're a master of their piece of equipment. But when you are a self-producer, whether you're doing a gaming channel, news channel, cooking channel, you enjoy it, like Marty said, as a hobby, or maybe you're trying to move in the professional ranks. Most people, when they begin, are self-producers. This is a main reason you do not implement new equipment. We just watched the multitasking master giving us a demonstration, and he still had to switch over to this camera, and he said, oh, it wasn't ready. He fixed it instantly. But for you and I, who are normal human beings functioning on the planet Earth, and we're having to self-produce, you really do not want to implement new equipment until it's mastered, because remember, ultimately, you are there communicating to your audience. you're communicating to your viewers, whatever that may be, whatever your niche is, that's what you're doing. Nobody's there to watch you push buttons. Nobody's there to watch you fail with a new piece of equipment. Oh, and it's cool. I got a new piece of equipment, but it's not working right. I'm going to get it going. You're there for your viewer. So make sure you are a master. I mean, even in my setup, I got crap everywhere. And that's really due to Steven, helping me out.
How
over
do
the
I
last
keep getting
15
blamed
months.
for this?
Because, dude, it's like the more cameras, the better. I mean, Steven, we're working on some different, but there's a valid point to it.
Yeah.
New angles, fresh angles, being able to do things on the fly. They're phenomenal. They'll make your channel grow, your experience grow, your audience grow, but you've got to be a master of them before you begin implementing them. So make sure, especially if you're a self-producer, you really are a master of your equipment. So, and I think, Steven, you are a good example for us. And then Marty's background coming in from ESPN, where he understands the network side of it. I think folks are getting a good overview of what's necessary when you want to begin implementing new equipment and new processes to your stream, to your production.
I think going along with what you're saying, though, I have a lot of cameras in here, but you notice I don't use them all. It's kind of like, I'm also a drummer, right? And a lot of drummers go in there and they want to hit every drum and every cymbal all the time, every time, or every new thing. There's a time and a place for that if you're a musician out there. The same thing's true with video, right? A lot of guys try to throw too much on the screen at one time. There's a time and place for that. There's as Marty calls it, a cadence, right? I have all this equipment, but you guys will be able to watch this show. You'll never know when I upgrade unless I tell you, because I've learned it and I've played it. And I remember when I went from Wirecast to TriCaster, nobody could tell that I did. Nobody even knew I switched. If I didn't say anything, nobody would have known. And that's how I am with everything. And Greg, when you went from OBS to vMix, you were going to learn Wirecast, and we decided to go to a vMix route.
We chose differently.
All people knew is your quality went up because you started learning
Correct.
different things about how that software worked, and you're like, oh my goodness, I can do this and I can do that. But you didn't implement it until you were confident enough to activate and do those things. Yeah, you had some, mishaps, but I'll tell you, the average person really didn't notice it too much. Right?
And that's when I'll get the message. And this is good. I mean this with all positivity, but this is when I get the message from Steven after one of my shows. He say, hey man, that was great, but I saw two things that the average Joe is not going to see. We need to fix them. And then he jumps in and helps me. The second thing I'll say before I throw it back to Marty is this. You just started talking about OBS and vMix, okay? We often think of adding new gear as a piece of hardware. It's something mechanical that you're purchasing. It's a new camera. It's a new interface. It's something new. But I also would throw into that category, if you are using OBS, if you're using StreamYards, if you're using vMix or any other of a plethora of live streaming tools that seem to be out there now, if you're on go live day and you're in the middle of the day and all of a sudden your software blinks and says update available, do not update your software. So you also, not only on a hardware side, but you don't want to do a software side update even on launch day, just to make sure there's no little hiccup in there, because what you have is working perfect. Make sure you have time to test and make sure it's all smooth.
Man, there's so much to unpack here. I want to, Greg, I think hit it on a really important point. We realize that most people starting out, and again, I come from the network level. At the network level, everyone has one job, and it's a whole team of people, and that's normally how things get done, because human beings really are only good at doing one thing at a time. Now, is that realistic in these scenarios where you're just starting out in live streaming? Probably not. You don't have the resources to be able to have a whole team of people. You can't build out a whole studio right away from day one. money's going to be an issue and all that. So you almost have to. Most people have to be a one-man band, self-produced. I mean, Greg Terry is certainly one of them. Steven's one, and you do it because you have to, and that's where really learning the workflow and testing things is even more crucial. Greg brought up another good point about software and hardware. Yeah, it's not all hardware. I mean, Steven has a lot of hardware there with the TC1 and the 460 TriCaster. Now they run on software too, but I would say also that's what's great about today and all the advances is so many different options and tools, and it's moving so fast, and that's a good thing. But also, if you're dealing with software, that even requires even more testing and more putting it through its paces and making sure, especially if you're using software and like on the TriCaster, the software and hardware work together. They're designed together. So it's a guarantee that there's enough computing power there to run the software. That's why on the TriCaster it's limited, or on the Blackmagic gear, there's a limit to it because it's married together. And what's great is OBS is free. vMix is not free, but it's available. The software tools, even the cloud software tools like StreamYard, they're out there. The caution is you want them. That's where the testing is really important because, again, they can only test it on a certain number of machines. If you have an older computer, don't assume that it's going to work right out of the box. You got to test that. A lot of these software products are pretty intensive on the CPU and the GPU. And depending on if you're doing a show, maybe you're bringing someone in virtually using like a video conference product that you bring, that adds on to the stress on the equipment. Now, can you do it? Of course you can do it. But that's why you have to test. And you may need to use multiple computers. Well, whatever you're doing, you have to test it thoroughly and make sure that not only the bandwidth going out, obviously people think about the internet, am I going to be able to stream out? But on the equipment itself, it's funny. I don't think people really think about that. I do production for my job, and I'm dealing many times with people that aren't professional, that may be guests on podcasts or whatever, and we walk them through it. But I don't think people really realize. They think just open a browser window and you're ready to rock and roll. And it's like, did you shut everything down? And all these things that we go through that I think about that, they're not going to think about that. They're not going to test it. We just got to get through it. But if you're doing a regular show, you have to test this stuff, especially with any kind of new software. And I think Greg also said something important. Stephen, you might have mentioned this too. Show day is not the time to do an update. If there's an update waiting there, you do not want. And we've run into all of us have run into that where we have an update waiting for us. I was like, no, we gotta. If you're on show day, do the show.
Well, the only time I'll do that, let's put the caveat in there, then you finish, is if it's a bug fix of something that you need that you know that's in there, then you take your chance and you do it.
Yep. Absolutely, but if it's not a critical fix that has to be done right away, I don't care how minor you think it is. Oh, I mean, you do not, because you never know.
Yeah.
So, and if you have a system that is working,
right, there's
no reason to do the update until after your show. So you got to make sure that you build that buffer time in to make sure. Okay, if I'm going to do especially with software products, you never know. And I've been in situations where, you do an update and, what's going on? And it takes some time to fix. But at least I'm not up against a deadline where I'm trying to get something out. I make sure that I have something and build time into my schedule. So in case something unforeseen happens, that I have enough buffer time to be able to deal with that issue or problem.
Let's dissect this question or comment in the chat room here from Jeff Rainwater. He says, but if we can't tell and it looks and sounds the same, is it really an upgrade? And I thought that was a very interesting statement, because like in the instance that I have, and that's a perfect example for that. The TriCaster TC1 looks, except for the case maybe, on the outside looks and acts and behaves pretty much the same. Gives me, for the untrained eye, the control panel looks essentially the same, right? So if I cut over to, let me go to camera 3 here, and if I cut over to that one and you guys take a look at this is the interface. Let me go back to this. Let me get rid of the lower third. This control panel is the old control panel. I call it the old one, but it's, and then this is the newer control panel. is there much of a difference between? I know there's a lot of difference with this control panel besides the look of it, but is there a lot of difference between it? Let's take a look. To the untrained eye, is there? I'm gonna zoom this.
Steven, are you flying Elon Musk to space? How was the trip with Jeff Bezos?
There's always one, right?
You look like the stinking space shuttle.
It lights up for sure.
Grief.
But it's future proofing, right? Because this, you're looking at a control panel here, okay? And the control panel in front of me connected to that TriCaster is only 1080p 60. And I say only. The new one's 4K. Am I ready for 4K? Not yet. So when PTZ Optics comes out with 4K cameras, I'm ready to go. I'm future-proofed, where I can't do that. I'd have to down-res everything on this. That machine...
Would you put
Go ahead.
Rainwater's question back up there one more time?
I can. That machine also does 16 inputs. Mine currently does 8. So now I don't... Again, we're talking about working smarter, not harder. Greg, you use the Stream Deck with tons of, shortcuts and things like that. I have to run what's called an SDI router. If you're familiar with how network routers work, think of that same analogy with video routers. I route SDI signals so I can pull up additional sources through a macro by pressing a button. With the new machine, I don't have to do that. So Jeff, to your question, you may not see the upgrade, but believe me, the upgrade is there because it's allowing me to do things that I don't have to do 10 button pushes or things that you don't see during a show by pressing one button. Guys, if you want to dialogue, go for it.
I think Jeff's question is coming from a viewer's viewpoint as well as a broadcaster's viewpoint.
Sure.
Because he does both. I watch his stream and enjoy it. And then he quite often is active in a lot of the things that I do. So I appreciate Rainwater. But I think coming from, let's think about it now from a broadcast and or viewer perspective. So on the broadcaster side, exactly what Steven was saying. The upgrades benefit me as the broadcaster. My most recent upgrade to my personal studio, designed by Stephen Haywood, is a secondary stream computer. So my vMix computer, data computer, which is a monster, praise God, I built it before there was no supplies left, is sitting down here in the corner, running a lot of the stuff to make the show happen. Up on my left over here, all networked in, is my streaming computer. So I took a load off of my main computer, which made that run, it already run phenomenal. Now I even have more confidence that I can do more and more things in my broadcast because now I'm not having to overwork one PC. I'm doing the work here. We're going through a network. We're streaming out of that one. But with that said, tonight, I'm not having to produce anything. I may throw a sound effect in just for some fun, but I'm doing nothing. So I'm not even going through my secondary computer. I'm just on the external and I'm dude, did you see it? I already had it. So the thing is, I'm only running at a portion of my capabilities tonight because I don't need to get all the other gear in. You don't see that. But here is what the viewer sees. The viewer sees, because of the increased capacity, the new technology, new cameras, new software, new gimmicks, more capabilities over time, your viewer sends you a message 3 weeks later and says, I don't know what you did different tonight, but your stream was better. How did you do that new graphical change? What did you do there? It's little things over time that viewers will see, and they will then appreciate that. They'll share it to other folks, say, listen, you got to go listen to this guy. Not only is the content good, but he's doing some crazy stuff with the video production. You're freed up over time to build the viewer response. So there's two ways to look at that: the broadcaster and the viewer.
Marty?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to, and Greg hit on some really good points. Upgrades happen under the hood, in other words, so like there's, and I think he put it very, very well. I mean, it's not everything you're going to necessarily see on screen. It may end up being an upgrade that may be better resolution, or there may be an upgrade, you may upgrade a camera to get, a better sensor, better picture, upgrade lights. It may be very, very subtle, but a lot of the upgrades also is what Greg mentioned is it could be just a way more efficient workflow especially if you're trying to self-produce. And so anything that you can make more efficient, more streamlined is going to be beneficial, because you're trying to, Steven makes it look easy. I mean, I know both Greg and I have an appreciation for that as far as him being able to put and doing these complex shows. There's a reason for that. Also the tools that you use. You go through the workflow, you rehearse it, you really know the gear and know what it's capable of. And then as you add additional pieces, you're actually making it easier and upgrading on your end to make it easier to produce the show seamlessly. And like even what Greg was mentioning, using the Stream Deck. Using a MIDI device like that where you can program buttons to do complex moves. If you're a self-producer, you can't go into a switcher, a traditional switcher, and be able to set up MEs on the fly and all that stuff, and these, program switches and things. It's too much, and plus you're dealing with the audio. If you can set up complex moves with a MIDI controller, especially if you're a self-producer, and push one button and know what it's going to do, that's an upgrade, because then also think of it, it makes it better for the viewer too. Not only for the producer, but for the viewer, because you're able to provide that much more of a professional production. So yeah, upgrades come in various formats. It's not always something you see directly on screen. It could be under the hood as far as especially if you're using a software product. It could just be better optimized software, and that's important. Like I mentioned before, if you're using software, you got to make sure that the computer that you're using can handle it. A lot of the video switching software, it's pretty heavy on the CPU and the GPU. And so if they come up with an upgrade where, we optimize the code and optimize the software to give you a better experience as a producer, that's a big upgrade. So you got to think of it more broadly than just what you see on the screen.
Stephen Haywood,
What?
I was gonna tell you, would you please put up your average gamer's comment? And
I'm learning the flow here with you guys. I was gonna toss it to you, Greg. Why don't you handle?
Master.
Let's get out your average gamer's question answered. Go for it.
Are you kidding me? Your average gamer just hit a grand slam. Unless you are just a producer watching this program. And I'm getting to know folks in here. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm the new one joining this family, and I'm very thankful and appreciative, to be welcomed in, and I look forward to getting to know all of you guys better. But a lot of you guys are streamers. I go check your stuff out. And if your equipment, and we're talking about implementing new equipment, if it's holding back your content, if it's holding back your interaction with your audience, you're in trouble, because you are there to meet a need, to do entertainment, to share a message, to teach a lesson, to do a tutorial, whatever is your niche. That's what you're there for. And if you're being held back by your equipment, you're in trouble. And to bounce off what Marty says, yeah, I use a Stream Deck XL, but for me, and this was just a marriage made in heaven, the Stream Deck with vMix, and then on top of that, when you use the power of vMix, which I'm getting decently good at, with triggers and scripts, literally, guys, when I start my program, and especially on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm in a different world, because at 4:30, I'm getting a call from Los Angeles. Okay, Greg, we need you to do a ping test. We've got to know exactly how many seconds that you're going to be on delay today. And then I have to adjust my production clock to match them perfectly because I'm coming on live syndicated right after a program. I have to hit it perfectly. So we do a ping test at 4:30. They'll say, okay, today it's 7 seconds. I adjust my production clock. Today it was 11 seconds. I adjust my production clock. But for me now, got that pressure. I've got an hour of content. I've got all these screens here. Praise God, I'm not thinking about any of those because literally when it's time to go, I hit one button and my countdown starts that Stephen helped me get on the professional side, how to do it professionally. He taught me. And then that triggers my 6-second. I have to put a little 6-second logo thing in there. Ding, 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 ding. And then it triggers my main camera. It triggers my audio. It triggers my, there's one more thing it triggers. I don't have that up on the stream deck tonight. It triggers 5 things, one action. And all I'm having to do is sit here and go, hey guys, how you doing? And start talking and do what I'm there to do. And that is to inform and entertain.
Well, let me, a lot of these guys are on the gaming side and they've watched my, the show that I do Friday with Glenn and Doug, the Retro Buzz. And guys, if you remember a couple weeks ago, we had the guys from New Wave Toys on. If you noticed on that show, I might have said 2 things the whole show. I sent Doug and Glenn a message and I said, look, I'm going to pull back from the mic. I'm actually going to turn my microphone off. And I'm going to focus on, and I think Marty, you caught this, I'm going to focus on the production because we had 2 guests plus Doug and Glenn. So with me, it would have been 5 people trying to talk in an hour space. And I don't collect a lot of that stuff from New Wave Toys. Nothing against them. It's just not my cup of tea. So Glenn and Doug were really excited to have those guys on. So I said, look, let me take the producer's role on this show. And you know what everybody said after it was all done? This was the best show you guys have done in a long time because I could focus on my wheelhouse. Yeah, I can do it. I can produce and host at the same time. But I keep myself limited on what I do that I can do from muscle memory because I don't want to throw things in that are going to complex it like Greg was saying. Because I need to focus on the audience. I need to watch the comments more than anything to be able to throw them up. I don't want to be overshooting cameras and pulling up additional websites if I don't have to. I want to keep it within my wheelhouse. That's why I did that. I made the decision in the moment, knowing that we had 2 good guests, plus 2 guys that were capable of doing it. And I said to Glenn, carry the show. And I coached him along the way at different times. I said, hey, hey, we got to wrap up, or hey, get him involved, or let Doug take, trying to help him. But I stayed off the mic and I just focused on producing. And sometimes, Marty, like you said, most people are used to doing one thing. I had to take myself back.
Yeah, you raised so many good points there. Again, as we said, many people self-produce because they have to. The other thing that you mentioned, and this kind of is my golden rule here, especially when you're starting out, is I always take the approach of clean and simple. I tell this to the clients, I tell this all the time. You want to strive for clean and simple. And especially if you're a one-man band. Because think about the complexity, like Stephen, your complexity level is off the charts, obviously. You're at a very high level. You have multiple layers there. But it's happened over a decade, or more than that with you. Yeah. Greg, your complexity level is high too for the average streamer, but you've been in it for a while and you built that up. I think people are just starting out. Okay.
I gained from Steven's learning curve.
Yep. Yeah.
Relationship.
But also, you didn't go whiz bang right out of the gate what you're doing now. No. You ramp it up. So I always take the approach of, especially if you're just getting started, clean and simple is a really good way to get started and good way to think about this stuff. Make sure that it's clean and simple, right? So you want to make sure that you get your shot nailed down, your lighting nailed down, your audio nailed down, and make sure it's all working properly. And you could do a lot. I mean, a friend of mine, Mark Rogers, who has a YouTube channel on college football, he has a very simple setup. He's been doing it over 10 years. He's now full-time doing YouTube, but he's been doing it for 10 years. His forte is on-camera presence. He has a great knowledge of college football. He doesn't have a fancy setup at all still. Now he's upgrading as we go, and it's been a long time, but it's always been the approach of you want to make sure his audio is good. He's got the high LPR4. He's got a good solid microphone. He's got decent lighting. Nothing fancy. He just upgraded his camera. Used to use just a webcam, but he makes sure that it actually works. He only had one camera, one shot. He doesn't have 17 like Steven does, or multiple cameras like Greg does.
Oh
I just have the one camera right now. But I mean, it's all about making sure that it's clean and simple, and make sure that it's ready to go. And they make sure, especially if you're doing a regular show, make sure that show is able to stream if you do it every week or whatever the frequency is. Make sure you're consistent, and you want to build that up. And especially if you're starting out. As you're starting out, the dirty secret is nobody's watching in the beginning. You're just starting out. So that's the time to make all the mistakes and get your workflow down. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, don't put all the fancy stuff in there right away before you actually know how it works and is it going to enhance the show? That's another question I ask. If you're going to add something, is it going to enhance the overall look and value of the show to your audience? If it's not, maybe you want to pull that out until you think if those are reasons to put it in.
Come on, Marty. You want me to introduce stuff like this. This just
right, there you go.
This just adds so much to the production. That was. Oh wait, here. Let's do this.
Do a couple more there. There you go.
But I did that to be funny. But honestly, how many people do things like that instead of like your normal, cut? Or fade or these are
cuts and fades are the most popular transitions.
Yeah,
and network television is 95% is 90% is cut,
right?
And the rest are fades. Right. And those DVE moves, usually lots of times you'll see them in sports when you go into an instant replay to have a demarcation between live and replay. Yep. But is there a reason for it?
Yeah, you don't need all this.
You probably want to stay away from it.
You don't need all the stingers. And things like that. But even the new show that I started doing with PTZ Optics, I asked Julia to join to be like the moderator, where she's been asking the questions to the residential experts, if you will. So that also frees me up to spend more time producing rather than trying to think of the questions to ask, right, or go down that line. And I think, Greg, you said something to me a while ago with the TV about you were looking for somebody to possibly produce your show, and what did I tell you?
Don't do it.
And why did I tell you not to have somebody do it?
You told me not to do it because nobody knows what I'm doing other than you. And that's the reality. They can't anticipate the trigger I need. They can't anticipate the transition. They can learn, but it will never be the same. And, I was very fortunate, very blessed. And, I do give Steven a lot of props, but they're well deserved. And I'm always listening and trying to learn. Guys, if you're on here tonight and you are not listening to what Marty McPadden just told you, then you just missed probably the golden nugget of the night. So I'm going to tell you what the golden nugget of the night is. A lot of this extra fluff that we do, if it's not built into your production, into your character, into your style, whatever you're doing, if you're just trying to put some fluff out there for some fluff, it's just going to be fluffy. The man just told you 95% of network television is a cut. They'll use a graphic to differentiate between a replay. You're listening to a guy that worked at ESPN that is a pro. Why are we going to try to figure out something that they've not already mastered? So, self-producing for me, and it's like this. If you're in your studio, whether it's at home or this is your business or whatever you do, it's pretty simple. Look around. What do you have? You've got lighting. You've got a camera. You got a computer or two, maybe a little switcher. You've got a microphone and an audio interface. That's what you have. You may go green screen. You may go a regular set setup. Doesn't matter. You have 6 or 7 things. So over time, you master those things. I'm looking up at my lights. I'm looking at my monitors. I'm looking at right directly into my camera right now. And I make sure I've got that baby mastered, that mastered, the computer mastered, the audio interface mastered, and then I add that new equipment as I see the need for it and never implement it on show night. Now, I'll tell you this, it even comes down to as simple as the microphone. And I know we've done a microphone show. If you haven't seen it, go back in the archives, you'll see it. Fantastic show. Shure SM7B. I ordered it from Amazon. I got me a new microphone, the bomb. All the famous streamers have the Shure SM7B, and I'm going to plug it in, and I got me a blue boom. Everything's ready to go, and you plug it in, and you go, wait, I don't have enough audio. There's no gain. I can't hear it because you didn't take time to realize you're going to run this microphone. You better have a cloud lifter with it to give you the gain you need. And all of a sudden, you got this great new microphone, you plugged it in, and you have a pretty mediocre show. So, doesn't matter. Software, hardware, audio, master your stuff, stick to what works.
I don't know what to say after that. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's a mic drop there. And your average gamer, he was saying here, overkill can be a distraction, and it absolutely can. It's just like
Steven,
good music.
Listen, and I know Rainwater's in my news program all the time, honestly. And like I'm learning, I'm sitting here soaking up what Marty McPadden says. And if you're not taking advantage of that, you need your head examined. The man's a pro. He doesn't have to do this. Listen to him, implement it, it works. Stephen Haywood is a professional. Listen to these people, learn from them, and implement it. I can tell you who said that, overkill. Your average gamer, overkill can be a distraction. When I was really getting rolling and the program was really picking up steam late spring, early summer, and Steven started piling in going, boy, we got to change some stuff. You got to have some equipment. We got to adjust this. Your viewership is rolling, we got to change everything. And then I started getting creative because I'm a creative person. I'm a communicator. I'm a musician. And I started doing all this overkill. The program would be great. The content great. I would go downstairs. My wife had been watching live, and this is what she would say. Man, that was amazing. Your show was great. But what is all that crap you're putting across the screen?
Yep.
Nobody wants to see that. We want to hear what you have to say. And if you ever put it up there again, I'm going to turn the breaker box off.
No, but we said that about his background. Like, if you look at his background right now, it's subtle. You see the globe moving subtly.
Oh,
it's
I used
blurred.
to give people Tourette syndrome.
He asked me what I thought the one time, and I says, all right. I says, can I be honest? And you're like, well, absolutely. I says, you got to slow down that stuff in the background because, Marty, when you used to have the TVs and, I have them back there, you see how slow they move. Yeah, his was, blinking like a Christmas tree, man. Like, they were going off, and, I mean, he didn't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. I said, man, slow it down, blur it a little bit. And I said, that's all you need.
Steven?
Let them focus on you.
Yep. All right, and this is great. And I know we're getting to the end here. Did I listen to you?
Absolutely. And then your wife didn't throw you out of the house.
When you've got people like Steven and Marty and Jeff that you can listen to, I'm here to entertain you. All right? And I've got a pretty good growing thing here, but listen to these people. They know what they're talking about. And, trust them. And that just frees you up to be a better broadcaster or streamer. So it's that simple.
I mean, Marty's the only guy I know that can make a curtain with a light shine on it look like a tremendous background, right? He takes the plane of the plane and makes it look like that.
It's funny. I've used this in the past. I do have a green screen. I just don't have it set up. And I just don't have time to really do it right. And if I can't do it right, then
don't do it. Yeah.
This is a great example. My setup right now is it's
bare
not where
bones.
I want to be at all. It's bare bones. I just make sure that I have a little contrast in the back, a couple lights up there. I have a single camera right now, and that's about it. And eventually, I'll set up my. I want to do some. I have some ideas when I get time. I don't know when that is, but this is an example of the clean and simple. If I can't do it right, then I'm going to revert back to what looks decent and clean and simple and nice. and not distracting. That's it, so build it up slowly. And I've been doing this for a while. I don't do a lot, Stephen, I do the show with you, but I don't do anything else really on a regular basis. But, build it up slowly. Like what Greg is doing with his, learning that those tips were those, slow down the motion, blur it out a little tips like that. You can watch TV, watch what other shows are doing, watch critically, really observe what's going on with graphics. And a tip I want to offer before we leave, a tip of the week sort of, is take some time and maybe record, like if you're doing an interview show, record a variety of cable news. And the reason I say that is many times during that situation, we're doing a lot of interviews and they work with graphics packages and things. Do recordings and review it and really study what they're doing, different looks and things like that. And you can pick up, and with contrast and fonts and how they set it up and the boxes and the backgrounds, really study it. Because a lot of people, they know what looks good, but they don't really study and that's what that's what it requires. You really have to be observant and really look at it and look at it, try to emulate some of that stuff just as a practice and start there and kind of go from there. But yeah, really look at it. And if you really want to learn how things are done,
And that's why my show looks like network TV, because I did that very thing.
Yep.
And it's set up like differently than what a lot of these guys are doing, and that's fine. That's just I like that look, right? Greg, you have that background, and you have like a virtual TV that's off to your right, which looks like traditional news, and it looks good.
We go here.
Yeah, there you go.
Here,
let me get rid of the lower third. It looks good. It looks just like you're watching network TV, and if you watch this TV,
then we go to here, and it brings up the information.
Go back to your logo a minute on the TV.
All right, back to the logo.
So see that shine going across there? Look how subtle that is. It's not enough to give you Tourette's. It's not enough to make you crazy. It's just enough to give it some
nice cycle. That's called the cycle when it repeats like that. But yeah,
just enough to give you a little bit of pizzazz to it.
And when you're doing the news and you want to zoom in on something, we're set up to roll it in. Reading a
That's
statistic.
great too. Can I just add something on that graphic there? Notice when he put that graphic together, look at the contrast. I mean, there's nothing complex about it. It's very, and that's another thing. It's clean and simple, right? You can read all the writing, and also there's a lot on there with the text. But because you're using the white against the red, has good contrast. You can read all that stuff.
See, there's the news clips.
Yeah,
it's very simple.
Because how many times have you seen shows where, I don't know what people are looking at, where the contrast with the type and the background and using similar colors doesn't make any sense. So look at it. Is it readable? Or at least run through your setup and record it. And does it make sense? Is it readable? Are people at home going to read it? Maybe do like I think Greg, I think you brought up where, stream to a private Facebook group or even stream privately to YouTube and then look at it afterwards. Can you read it? Is the resolution good? I don't know, so that's all stuff.
And the other thing, and actually, I'll be honest with you, this has been one of my favorite shows we've ever done personally. I think this really hits a need.
Yep.
But, you have to also remember people are not only watching on phones, iPads, computers, and televisions. So you have to be thinking, okay, what is this person seeing on the iPhone screen versus what is the person seeing on their 65-inch big screen, and get something that kind of works for everything.
No, 100%. And if you notice too, like he's saying, I had to do the same thing. Look at the 2 box here. It's easier to see because it's wider if I take off the lower third. There's movement behind that. It's very subtle. Look how slow it is. But you're seeing just subtle movement just to kind of catch your eye a little bit. Nothing major.
My movement is not messing it up.
Nope. And it's not making you crazy.
Marty's
like,
shower curtain
and my movement's not messing it up. Wait a minute. I have no movement. So.
Hey, Marty, get your wife back there shaking the curtain.
But it's true, guys. So you just need to think. You need to think about that. Like when I'm on my full shot, you see the lights pulsate just a little bit. You see these move just a little bit. I have double depth where I'm shallow and then it gets depth as it goes further back. You try different things, but the main thing is, I think we've all said, It's okay to upgrade your equipment. Just don't do it before you go live. And that includes your backgrounds. That includes your graphics. Don't just hurry up and do it and throw it out there, because remember, that impression, that first impression, could either make or break you. So I tell people, it's okay to roll it out slowly. I would encourage some of you guys that are in here right now, if you're thinking about upgrading your graphics or thinking about upgrading something, make it your goal for 2022 as you launch. Start working on it now. Design it. Make it. Test it. Take some of your good buddies, like Greg said. Throw them into a group. What do you guys think? Oh, I don't really like that. Or, oh, that's driving me nuts. Do that. Don't just throw it out and say, hey, guys, I got new graphics. And then everybody's looking at it. It looks like a Happy Meal throw up on your screen. You don't want to do that.
Be honest with yourself. If you're looking at it yourself and go, I'm not sure I like that, then change it.
Yep.
Go back to what worked.
Yep.
You know, process step by step.
Yeah, all that. So, guys, we got to wrap it up here. It was a great conversation. We can always continue this more. But, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Greg Terry, youtube.com/Greg Terry Experience. Every Tuesdays and Fridays. And then you have the midweek worship service, so you guys can check them out over there. The Greg Terry Experience Show.
And Stephen, I'm telling you right now, Marty, you listen to me. Next week, I'm gonna have a shower curtain.
Oh, jeez.
Is that a that's not a tease? I have no idea what is.
Oh, jeez. He didn't say if he'd be wearing the shower curtain or if he's just gonna.
I'm gonna have a shower curtain.
Leaves a lot to the imagination.
Check it out, guys, and also Mr. Marty McPadden, Podjam.tv. If you're looking for anybody to produce your podcast or live video stream, check him out. He does a fantastic job, and also with video editing. I mean, I've touched base with him on Final Cut Pro and things that I didn't know how to do. And he's like, oh, yeah, you just do this, 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 and this. So if you're looking for that.
I live in FCP, so always on.
And, guys, I appreciate everybody coming out tomorrow night. We got the Retro Buzz, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern. But I do want to put this plug out. If you didn't see the video with myself and Michael Manor, or you guys know him as Stevie Richards, go check that out. But I wanted to make a point. If you didn't check out the interviews that I did Saturday, his wife is now going to be doing some voiceovers. So we want to promote that here. They're going to do some for this show to do. And if you're looking for voiceover artists for some of your stuff, if you get sponsors or if you just want to say, hey, this is the Broadcast Now show and it's not your voice, hit Stevie up or hit me up and I'll get him in touch with you and get that going. But I think it's going to be really cool. I've heard his wife. She's got a very professional sound to it, so be interesting. But, guys, appreciate you hanging out with us here. We'll be back next week with more Broadcast Now. Send in your suggestions. What do you want to know about? Maybe we haven't even hit some of the basic stuff that you need to know. We need to know what you want to know so that way we can help you go on your journey of live streaming and broadcasting here for Broadcast Now. Hit us up, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find us, Facebook, and we'll be happy to do what we can. So, till next time, guys. Keep it buzzing.